Sustainable Japan. I'm JJWalsh, your host, and today I am joined by Yoko Iwamoto, who is also in Hiroshima. So both of us are in Hiroshima today. Wonderful.
Thank you, Joy. I'm Yoko Iwamoto. I'm working in Hiroshima University, and I'm now in Saijo, Higashi Hiroshima City, in the Hiroshima Prefecture.
Yeah, I was so excited to connect with you, Yoko, because we were able to use your wonderful Mitarai base for the Women to Inspire Sustainable Japan event, which we did in May 14th. And I was so excited, of course, to meet you at the citrus event, I think.
Yes,
And
lemon
then I
picking.
saw your beautiful place, and you have remodeled an old 100-year-old rice merchant's house. Is that
Yes,
right?
yes. Yeah, this house was rice shop before, and I bought this house about 3 years ago, and before that, this house was not abandoned, but no one living in the house,
Vacant, yeah.
vacant.
And it has so many beautiful features in
Mm.
the house, which you have done some renovating and remodeling. You're also doing some of your own plastering, which you did a workshop for us
Yes,
at the women's event. That was
yeah,
really fun to learn how you're doing the natural plastering.
yes.
But you also are using the space
Mhm.
as a event space for.
Yes, yes. This picture is a kind of art events in the island last year. And professional photographer used my space for his exhibition.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was
wonderful.
very
And then
nice.
here you can see how you took out the upstairs flooring to
Yes,
add more light, right?
yes, yes, yes. That work was very tough. I and my father did that because my father
Wow,
is very good at DIY
really
things.
good. And speaking of your father, he makes these antique lamps, right?
Yes, yes. He also made some stained glass lamp because that was his hobby before.
Yeah, I love that. And then this was you can see the antique lamps here as
Yes.
well. This is the main maybe it used to be the rice merchant shop,
I
and then this
think
is
so.
where we had our event, right?
Yes.
Now, you have also of course, this is our event. Wonderful
Yes.
to have everybody sitting on the tatami, and
Mm-mm.
then we had, like, a speakers area,
Mm.
and in the back rooms, we had space to eat lunch
Eat.
and
Yes.
have tea and snacks. It's a wonderful, wonderful facility. I'm so happy we were able to use it. Thank you so
Mm.
much.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for using this my Mitarai base.
Oh,
It was very
fantastic.
nice. Mm.
So good. And it was such a great point to start. And this is our group from the women's event and in front of your beautiful remodeled house.
Mm.
And we also did a walking tour around famous Mitarai. So it's such an easy, wonderful town to walk around,
Yes.
and it has so
Mm.
many great connections
Mm-mm.
to history and heritage.
Mm-mm. And it's not so big town, so you can walk every place in 1 hour, I think.
Yeah, easily,
Mm.
easily 1 hour. Now, of course, at the event, you also gave a talk about your research, which we'll
Yes.
talk about a little bit later.
Mm-mm.
But you grew up in this area. You grew up in Kure, is that
Yes,
right?
yes. Kure, the main, the central part of Kure. Mm.
And you said you grew up next to the sea and
Yes.
going out on boats and felt a connection to the fishing industry. And of course, that's connected to your research now, right?
Yes, not the central part of Kure. The Kure port is not very connected with the fishery industry, but there are so many ships because there is big shipbuilding company or many types of ships come and go every time. So I was very familiar with that the landscape.
Yeah. Well, of course, Kure is world famous for its
Mm.
naval history and its
Mm.
submarines and shipbuilding.
Oh yeah.
The famous Yamato
Yes. Yeah.
ship was built there, which was revolutionary at the time, right?
Yes. Yeah. The dock which they made Yamato is now a shipbuilding company still using that space. Mm.
Yeah. Wendy has joined from Facebook and she says Mitarai Base was the perfect location to bring people together. So
Yeah.
inspiring to see what you've accomplished with the house and thankful to add a trowel full of plaster to the wall. It's
Thank
true.
you,
Everybody
Wendy.
who joined the event feels like they have helped remodel your house a little
Mm.
bit. What a
Yes.
nice part of the event, right?
Yeah, it was very helpful.
Now, we said Kure was very famous for shipbuilding. I
Mm,
think in the modern times,
mm.
Kure is also famous for one of its female toji, the
Oh,
sake brewer Miho Imada of
oh.
Fukuchiba Sake. So
Mm,
there is a lot of old, like Mitarai.
mm,
There's
mm,
a lot of old, interesting history, but there's also a lot of young entrepreneurs
mm.
who are building a brighter future. And I
Oh,
think, Yoko, you are one of them. You
thank
are
you.
one of the new
I didn't notice
entrepreneurs.
that.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, you're mostly using Mitarai Base as a place for research and building community and organizing events. Um,
Yes.
you often bring your students there for
Uh,
projects. Is that right?
yes, yes. I in the Hiroshima University, I'm in charge of the undergraduate program called IGS, Integrated Global Studies. That is a kind of liberal arts program, and we have both Japanese student and international student, and yeah, they are so yeah, very nice student, and as are very, how can I say, the vigorous, and yeah, if I invite them into the Mitarai base, they liked my space, and yeah, sometimes they uh, create some events. Mm,
But I think like Mo and Simona also talked about,
mm,
on the show and
mm.
at the event, it's so important to be bringing young people to these small
Yes.
rural
Mm,
towns,
mm, mm.
just so they can experience it for themselves, but also it's an introduction,
Mm.
and maybe they will come
Yes.
and live here or
Yes,
come
yeah,
and do a
yeah.
project here, right?
That is very important point. And yeah, when I uh, found that house, the previous owner told that yeah, they want that house not just for their business or how can I say, the second house, but uh, rather they want that house to use some a space which the student can uh, do some events in that space. Yeah, so I try to, yeah, do that.
Yeah, I think
Mm,
it's great, right? And it
mm,
has, even just that house
mm,
of yours has a wonderful history and teaches me so many things about Japanese culture from the past and present,
mm,
right?
mm, mm,
Like it was a rice merchant's house,
mm, mm.
so you have the downstairs maybe shop area,
Yes.
you have the okyakusan
Mm.
nice rooms of tatami, and then you have the back rooms, which is
Yes.
very plain and
Mm.
no decoration,
Yeah. Mm.
and that was very typical of the time of
Mm.
the tatemae and hone, right?
Yeah.
The customer
Mm,
view
mm,
and
mm,
the real family view.
mm.
And you don't often see that in old houses anymore,
Oh.
so that was
Mm.
really interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah. Was that one of the things that attracted you to that house, is the history and the view, of
Ye
course?
Yes, and there are some interior. inside the house. For example, the ceiling uh, of the second floor is very unique. Yeah, this one. It's a curved ceiling. So yeah, for me, this is my first time to see that kind of ceiling.
Yeah,
Mm,
really unique feature. Also on the windows, the
uh,
wooden design on the windows is really
yes,
unique.
yes.
I
Mm,
saw a lot of houses in Mitarai actually that have really unique and very ornate
mm,
design features,
mm,
which I
yes.
haven't seen in other
Mm,
parts of Japan. So it's
mm,
really exciting.
yes,
And of course, you are right next to the ocean. So you can
yes.
have this beautiful sea
Yeah,
view
yes.
and see the beautiful stone lantern on
Mm.
the old port, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So we want to talk about your research in
Oh,
particular, but I was surprised to read that you are
ah,
going out sometimes on the boat with
yes.
Hiroshima University, right?
Yes, this ship is owned by the Hiroshima University named Toyoshiomaru, and the base of this ship is Kure, my hometown.
Yeah. And
Mm.
I like to read your story that you said you often do research on boats in internationally.
Ah,
Um,
yes.
but
Mm.
one of the down point, the not so good point is they only have a bath for men.
Yes.
But the Japanese Hiroshima University ship has a bath for men
But
and women, right?
yes, yes, of course. Yeah, yeah,
So
but
that's nice
the
to hear.
station is now changing. The old ship it's now remodeling to have a new bathroom for the women. Mm,
Yeah, of course. When I talked to Ian Urbina, who is a journalist who
mm,
covers a lot of stories about the ocean,
mm.
he was talking about it's very male dominated. All
Yes,
of the ocean
yeah,
activities is only men, right? The
yes, yes.
fishing industry,
Mm,
the oil and gas industry on
yeah,
the ocean, the
trans.
scientists. So, Yoko, it's so exciting to talk to you. You were one of the few women who are
Yes.
focused on the oceans.
Yes, yeah. The most of the crews are other men, and the scientists, yeah, especially in Japan, the STEM field, the women in STEM field is very not very much. So yeah, about 50 or 20%. Yeah.
Yeah, so you are such a important and wonderful role model for all the other women out there who are interested but maybe intimidated by being one of the few women in the field, right?
Mm.
Good for you. Now, you have a very interesting point of research. You are studying aerosols.
Yes,
So, between the atmosphere and the ocean kind of level, right?
yes, yes. This picture shows an air sampler. It's on the rooftop of this campus, but I usually collect the aerosol samples over the ocean. Aerosol is a tiny particle in the atmosphere. Mm. It's not it's invisible but very important for the Earth's climate or ecosystem.
Yeah. So if you're on a ship, do you have a similar type of aerosol catcher like this?
Yes, yes, yeah. We usually put this kind of aerosol sampler on the upper deck, the most top
Yeah.
deck, and yeah, collect the sample.
And your research has been going on since 2004. Is that right?
Yes, yes, yeah. 2004, I was um, first year of master course student, and 2004, I joined my first research cruise. That was very exciting. That is iron fertilized in that cruise. We conducted the iron fertilization experiment over the ocean. It's a very
Wow.
stupid idea, but the iron is uh, a kind of nutrient for the phytoplankton. And but there are uh, the ocean region which the iron is not enough for the phytoplankton growth. If we add iron into that water, the plankton, the growth of plankton will be enhanced. So we just
Ah.
we checked that phenomena in situ over the North in the North Pacific Ocean.
That's so
Uh,
interesting. I read that you were saying how iron is so important for photoplankton, photosynthesis. Sorry,
Fight
I'm not a scientist. But the way that the iron gets to the ocean is from dust and dirt
Yes,
that
yeah.
blows onto the ocean
In
usually.
natural phenomena, the dust, like Asian dust or Saharan dust, was a very important source for the iron into the ocean. Mm.
Yeah, really interesting. And you can, from your research catching the aerosols, you
Mm.
can see what kind of
Yeah, yeah,
minerals
yeah,
or
mineral or what kind of chemicals, yeah, chemical composition of the aerosol particles. This picture showing the when that aerosol air atmosphere particles that contain the nutrients deposit onto the ocean. Maybe the phytoplankton algae will the growth of algae will enhance and they will do the photosynthesis that results in the absorption of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere into the ocean. So that is I mean that the phytoplankton is very important for the climate change.
yeah, I read that on one of your
Oh,
information
yes.
pages that the phytoplankton, is
Mm,
it
yes.
collects carbon and then at the end of its life cycle it sinks to the ocean for
Mm,
1,000 years.
yes, yeah, because the turnover time of ocean is very, very long. It's about more than 1,000 years. So, yeah, if the phytoplankton died and sink into the deep ocean, that means that we can sequester the CO2 into the ocean.
It's another problem though, is I think during your presentation you were talking about one of the ideas to make the oceans healthier again is to dredge up the ocean floor. But
Mm,
if it's a place that carbon is stored,
mm.
is there a danger in bringing up carbon as well?
Uh, I sorry, I can't follow your question. So,
That's okay. We'll talk about it later when you talk
okay,
about
okay,
your research.
okay.
Yeah, maybe it's better. So you, before we talk about your research in particular, you also did a really interesting research project in the Bering Sea.
Uh,
You went to the equator. You spent a month from
spent
Vancouver
from
to
yeah,
Hawaii,
Hawaii,
right?
yes, yes, and I also yeah,
And
yeah,
the
I also went to the
Indian
Indian
Sea
Ocean as well
as well.
in 2018. Yeah.
Yeah, so you've done a lot of international projects, and then it seems like now your research is on the Seto Inland Sea, is that right?
Yes. Yeah, I still doing my research in the open ocean, but now I'm in Hiroshima, and yeah, I also researching about the Seto Inland Sea.
Okay, let's look at your research a little bit. Thank you for sending me the slide. Let me see if I can bring it up here.
Thank
Okay,
you.
can you see it?
Yes,
So,
I can
how
see.
can we achieve a sustainable Seto Inland Sea? Do you
Yes.
have the answers, Yoko? That's a big question.
I don't have the answer, but we have to think about this issue, because now Seto in the especially fish industry of Seto Inland Sea is facing very bad condition. So we have to improve uh, the productivity of Seto Inland Sea.
And the fishing industry, fishing and seafood
Yeah.
and even seaweed is
Mm. Seaweed, yes.
important
Mm,
industries for
mm,
Hiroshima area, right?
yes, yes. Seaweed or yeah, aquaculture also, not just catchment of the fish. We also do the aquaculture for the oyster or seaweed like nori. Mm. Oh, this is this is about aerosols, so we can skip this one. Okay, so yeah, there are three important roles of Seto Inland Sea: field, the garden, and road. So we use Seto Inland Sea as a field, like uh, the fishery industry or aquaculture, and we also use Seto Inland Sea as a garden for the tourism. And the Seto Inland Sea is a very important road for shipping something. So there are so many stakeholders around the Seto Inland Sea.
Yeah, it's important in many different ways, right?
Yeah.
Also a resource for water and the
Mm.
rivers as well, right?
Yes.
I'm always interested that Hiroshima has the 6 rivers coming from the mountain and
Mm.
then coming up from the ocean as
Mm.
well. So a
Mm.
lot of the rivers are a mix of
Yes,
the
yeah, yeah.
seawater and the freshwater, right?
Yeah, especially at the mouth of the river, uh, yeah, the tidal circulation is very important, and that area is important for some shellfish or some products.
Now,
Mm.
one of the things you said about that in your talk at the women's event
Mm.
was how the quality of the water coming
Mm.
from the rivers,
Mm.
because there's less organic material.
Yes, less organic materials and the nutrients because before uh, 1980s, the Seto Inland Sea was a bit polluted. There are so many lead tide problems, and if the lead tide occurs, some fish killed by the harmful algae, and that was very not very good for the fish industry. So the government made some law to protect the Seto Inland Sea, the environment of Seto Inland Sea. And the main uh, uh, the way for the protect the environment is reduce the nutrients and organics from the river by putting the waste treatment. Then we have a very clean ocean, but too clean for the phytoplankton. That is a problem.
Yeah, you said that, and then you have this slide showing
Yes.
the
Yeah.
reduction
Mm.
in the fish and the seaweed, maybe because of this, right?
Yeah, yeah. That fish is a kind of the top. They exist the top of the ecosystem pyramid, but fish production was sustained by the zooplankton or shellfish, and they their production was sustained by the seaweed or phytoplankton. They are plants, but their productivity is sustained by the environmental factor. So if the base of the pyramid shrink, the top, the area of the top of the pyramid also shrinks. So now the situation of the Seto Inland Sea is the light, like a light pyramid, the shrinked pyramid. So we have to, uh, yeah, enlarge the area of the environmental factor.
So if we improve the base
Mm,
environment,
mm,
then it should improve all the layers to the top, right?
yeah, yes. So
Yeah.
now the government are especially focusing on the nutrient condition of the Seto Inland Sea, and they changed the law uh, to make uh, the Seto Inland Sea not just clean ocean, but productive ocean. 豊かな海。
Productive,
うん、
not
うん、
clean.
うん、
That's a important difference, right?
yes, yes. うん、
Yeah, that's interesting. Sometimes in Hiroshima City, you see the run run or the gun gun, the sightseeing boats,
うんうんうん。
and maybe they have a toilet on board and they allow the
あ
sewage to
あ、
go in the
うんうん、
water.
うんうん、
Or sometimes in the city, you
う
see
ん、
the sewage is
うん、
released into the water,
うん、
maybe some kind of light filtering.
うん、
But you actually argue that maybe that's better for the quality of the water. Is that
う
right?
ん。Yes, to some extent. Yeah. Yeah, but still the red tide problem is ongoing. We don't every year we have 100 or less red tide issue in the Seto Inland Sea. So we have to regulate the nutrient concentration. Mm. It doesn't, but it's not very easy.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's like everything with sustainability. Everything needs to be in balance, right?
Mm.
If
Yes.
all of the sewage goes in the water
Mm.
at the same
Mm.
time,
Yeah.
that's going to be imbalanced,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
But maybe if there's some kind of balance of organic material and the ocean is able to balance and
Mm.
keep a better balance, that's
Yes.
better, right?
Yes. Yeah. So, for example, in the developing countries, the eutrophication is the problem. It's too much nutrients, and there are so many red tide or some situation with less oxygen is not toxic for it's toxic for the fish. But in the Seto Inland Sea, uh, in the past we have a same problem, but if when after we try to have a cleaner ocean, but we now have a clean ocean, but that ocean is not very productive. So it's a kind of ironic.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah. We need to keep, like, your work is to keep analyzing the
mm,
changes over time, right?
yes.
We need that information
Mm.
in order to think about strategy to improve the area, right?
And this issue will occur in the future in the other inland sea in the developed countries. So to solve this problem is maybe very good for the the other ocean area. Mm.
Yeah, we can take the good examples or the
Mm,
good strategies and apply them to other areas around the world, right?
mm,
Yeah,
yes.
wonderful. Sliman Azimi from LinkedIn
Uh,
says
yes.
increasing the amount of biodiversity
Yes.
is important, increasing the size of the pyramid.
Yes, yeah, yes, yeah. It's not that very. It's very good idea. So yeah, the biodiversity is very important. And for example, the red tide is the harmful phytoplankton extremely grown, and then they kill the fish. So we use yeah always we take we have to take balance.
Yeah. Kyle Russell has also joined from YouTube.
Mm,
Thanks, Kyle. Is sea farming for
mm.
seaweed in Japan continuing? I
Yes.
see many products in America from Korea.
Oh, yes, yeah. The seaweed aquaculture for the seaweed is still ongoing, but yeah, in the Seto Inland Sea, because of the less nutrients, the quality of the seaweed, especially nori, so the nori is a black, like a black paper. But the nori, the quality of nori is not good. Uh, in Japan, the black nori is very good, but now the color of nori is lighter and lighter, so that is not very good. Mm.
So the lighter color is showing a lack of
Yeah,
nutrients, maybe?
yes, yeah. Mm.
Yeah. Near Mitarai,
Mm.
where you have your
Mm.
beautiful place, there is a famous seaweed salt factory,
Ah, yes,
right?
moshio, yes. Mm.
Yeah, where American chefs
Oh.
travel to and visit this tiny, tiny little salt
Oh. Mm.
factory, which has old style back to the Jomon era,
Yeah, yeah,
1,000 years
they use
ago, right?
the ceramic
Yeah,
pot,
they
boil
boil the
the
seawater
seaweed,
and take the
so,
seaweed salt,
yes,
very interesting.
mm,
So it's nice to see there is some, products made from seaweed in that area where you're living around
mm,
Kure.
mm,
But we need to think about the improving the quality of the water for any kind of product
mm,
coming from the sea, right?
mm, yes.
Very interesting. Okay, let's go back to your PowerPoint here. So we talked about the use of the Seto Inland Sea
Mm,
in three
mm,
different ways.
yes. Yeah. So yeah. So once the Seto Inland Sea was the eutrophic sea, but now the Seto Inland Sea is oligotrophic sea. It's not enough with not enough nutrients. Mm.
So eutrophic means very healthy.
Yeah. A eutrophic is not healthy. The
No.
eutrophic is too much nutrients and are kind
Mhm.
of polluted ocean. Mm.
So it's like two extremes,
Two
from
extremes.
too much
Yes,
to too
yes.
little.
So we have to aim the middle of this eutrophic and between the eutrophic and oligotrophic.
Okay.
Uh, yes, this is the history of the law that in the 1918s, the government established this law to make the Seto Inland Sea more clean. But after that, the Seto Inland Sea was very clean and too clean live live to for the phytoplankton. So they revised twice the law to make the Seto Inland Sea not clean, just clean but productive ocean. And last year they revised this law and introduce a nutrient management system. So now the prefecture can manage the nutrients system, but most of them do not how they manage the nutrients or when we have to do that. So so now we need more research.
About different strategies.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, it must be very complicated, right?
Yeah.
And then we talked about
Mm,
the ecosystem pyramid,
yes, yes.
and I think that was the last slide. Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay. So there are several ways for the nutrient management. One of them, the main one, is that the reduce the capacity of the sewage treatment. So we discharge a bit dirty water into the ocean. Mm. So some prefecture try to do that and see the result. And
Wow.
another way is cultivate the ocean. So because the depth of the Seto Inland Sea is not so deep, it's about 40-meter average. So the fish boat uh, drag the big kind of metal things and mix the bottom water to because the nutrients usually the surface water that there are no nutrients, but the deeper water we can see the more concentrated nutrient because of the dead body of the phytoplankton. Mm.
Yeah, this connects to a question I had after the
Mm-mm.
event when you said that. You said that a lot of the natural materials soaks the carbon,
Mm.
sinks to the
Mm.
bottom for 1,000
Mm.
years. And so this is one thing I'm worried about is if we dig up the bottom of the
Ah,
ocean, are we releasing
ah, ah,
carbon?
ah. Yeah, that's the important point. Yes, sometimes, but mm,
Maybe that can be analyzed
mm,
to make sure it's not happening
yes, yes,
if that
yes.
technique is used.
Mm.
Yeah. I know it's difficult, right? Because Yoko, you're a scientist. So your job is to teach about scientific data collection,
Mm.
right? Your job is not to think of the solution,
Yeah, yes, of course. Yes,
right?
you're right.
So we
Mm.
are asking you about the solution,
Mm.
but that's not actually
Yes,
your
yes.
job.
We,
Yeah.
so we have to collaborate with a policymaker or social scientist. Mm. That needs
Yeah.
is yeah, increasing for us.
So, do you work with people who create strategy?
Um,
So, the policymaker gets information from the
mm,
scientist, but the policymaker also needs to get information
mm.
from the strategist,
Yes,
right?
yes. There are some funds. For example, the environmental ministry of Japan have a funds for the environmental issue, and they usually uh, uh, propose the government needs, the list of the government needs, and then the scientists apply for the apply for the research fund to solve that problem. And sometimes we can collaborate with the governors. Mm,
And this must be research that scientists and
mm,
policymakers
mm,
are trying to do around the world.
mm.
Do you also collaborate with international
Uh,
people doing ocean research?
yes, but most of them are scientists. It's not politician or social scientist.
Is there a gap between the scientists and the policymakers? That
Uh,
must be a difficult gap, right?
yes, sometimes, yeah, you're often, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the scientists like loves talk more complicated things, but yeah, the general people or politician needs more simple words. Mm,
We need you doing the research and publishing your research and inviting your students to be a part of the
mm,
research. Maybe your students, because they're a younger
mm,
generation, maybe they can think of a new creative solution, right?
yes. Mm,
Sleeman says, is
yes.
the nutrient management system basically a way of allowing companies the right to pollute?
Uh,
So could it be
mm,
abused if it's
yes,
allowed?
yeah, yeah. There are some regulation for the pollutants, so the company has to reduce the pollutants level below the regulation. Mm.
Yeah.
But
But
mm,
it's really it's counterintuitive, right? Like when you say the ocean became too clean because of
mm,
regulation and that was not
mm,
good. It reminds
mm,
you that it's not a easy answer.
mm,
It's not just take out all the organic dirty
mm,
things and it's better.
yeah.
It actually needs
Mm,
a little bit of the dirty things,
mm,
right?
mm. And
Just to
yeah,
simplify
and
it.
I also thought that there are three important roles for Seto Inland Sea. As for the field, we need a more productive ocean, but for the tourism, they need clean ocean. So, mm,
That's so
mm, mm,
important, right? Because people like I near
mm,
Mitarai, where your place
mm,
is, I for many years I would go there and do triathlon.
mm,
So we were swimming in the ocean. Of course, for tourism,
うん、
we want people to come and
う
swim in
ん、
the
うん、
ocean, from local areas as well as
うん、
visitors, right? But if the ocean doesn't look
うん、
clean or makes people sick
yes,
if they're swimming
う
in it,
ん、
that's really
うん、
bad because tourism is an important part of the
うん、
economy to keep
yes,
the
yes,
small rural
うん、
areas
うん、
alive, right? Yeah, it's a difficult
う
balance.
ん、
And then we have a lot of pollution because of the big ships
yes, yes,
going
うん、
through the
yeah, yeah,
area
but,
because of
うん、
fossil
う
fuels,
ん、
right?
yes, yeah, you are right, and but now the there is some law. We call that MARPOL, Marine Pollution Law. It's an international law, and in 2020 they uh, changed the regulation of the sulfur content level in the oil. So now uh, the big ships has to use more uh, higher quality oil to reduce the ship emission. So this is good for the atmospheric environment. うん、
Yeah, really important. I remember being in the ocean in some triathlons and like even in a beautiful place like
う
Okinawa,
ん、
if you're in the ocean in the
うん、
water
うん、
swimming next to a
うん、
boat that's like a diesel boat,
う
diesel
ん、
engine, you can
う
taste it.
ん、
You can smell it
あ
in the
ーあ
water.
ー、
So on a very individual
うん、
level, I
うん、
realized, wow, these are not the
う
best
ん、うん、
situation for the health of
う
the
ん、
ocean, right? In Onomichi area, there's a
う
boat
ん、
for tourism that they're starting to do hybrid
おう、う
hydrogen and
ん、
fuel.
うん、
So there are some
う
innovation
ん、
happening, especially for
う
tourism,
ん、
to try to decrease the
あ
amount of fossil
ー、
fuels. Maybe that's better for the ocean
yes,
health.
yes, and now the price of the oil is pretty high.
Yeah. I drive an electric car. I would love to see electric boats
うん、
as well,
うん、
right? That would
う
be
ん、
wonderful. One more
うん。
question. When you do your research,
The companies
are the companies who are involved with the Seto Sea helpful, or do you feel it's challenging to get your data?
so you mean that we are uh, so now we are collaborating with company or not? うん。
I think he means, do you feel
う
pressure
ーん、
about being very
うん。
honest about negative data?
ああ、
Do you have any influence or pressure because your research is
う
funded by
ん、
the
うんう
government,
ん。
but the government wants to maintain a positive
Yes,
image?
yeah,
So
yeah.
is there
う
some kind of
ーん。
conflict sometimes?
So far I never had that experience, but yeah, recently uh in the Kure, that very big steel mill, steel works shut down. So I try to see the change of the air quality, and that we could see the drastical change of the air quality around the steel works. うん。So, but maybe it's not a bit difficult to publish. Maybe I will publish, but it's not. Yeah, the workers in steel mill do not feel very good. I think so. Sometimes we
It's
have this kind of
yeah,
problem. うん、
that's an
うん、
important industry for the Kure
うん、
economy, but it was so
うん、
pollutive that it was
うん、
important to
うん、
stop. It's the same question many people around the world are having. There's many people employed by fossil fuel industries, oil, gas,
う
coal.
ん、
Are they going to lose their
うん、
job?
う
How
ん。
do we give people
Yes,
jobs
yes.
and keep the good
Yeah.
economy, but protect the
うん、だんだん、
environment? This is
う
a
ん、
huge
yeah,
question, right?
it's very important question because the main industry of Kure is heavy industry like shipbuilding, steelworks. So the shutdown of the steelworks is very, very serious problem for the economy in Kure. So,
Yeah. But your work as a scientist
mm,
showing that after the steelworks
mm,
closed, the
mm,
environment is
mm,
healthier, that's important
mm,
to
mm,
be doing that.
mm,
Yeah, thank you so much for what you're doing. And I should mention also that you are at probably the strongest university in Hiroshima area.
yeah,
Hirodai Hiroshima
yeah.
University is the biggest public
Mm,
university for the
mm,
area. So they really respect
mm,
research and researchers. So in your position, maybe you have a stronger position than a smaller university
mm,
might have,
mm.
right? That's a good point. Kyle asks, I have a package of Oshima Island
Oh.
salt, fine crystals, red label, 500 grams. Love this salt
Yeah,
and hope the sea stays clean.
I love that salt. Mm,
Yeah. But that's something I love about the small town of
mm,
Mitarai as well. They used to have a shoyu maker,
mm.
right? They used to have a shoyu
Ah,
factory, a soy sauce,
mm.
right? And they are growing vegetables and citrus.
Oh,
Mitarai had a very clean water.
mm,
That's why it became such a very popular
mm,
town 1,000 years ago,
mhm,
right? So if you can get clean water, local
mm,
food from fruit and vegetables, and you can make salt,
mm.
you have the three most important things
Yes.
to survive, right?
Yes.
I love that. So, yeah, very important to have your essentials. And I think during coronavirus, more people are thinking about that, right? How do we live somewhere we can survive?
Mm,
We can get everything we need.
mm.
Very important. Going back to your research, is there anything we didn't cover?
Yeah, I think, yeah, we covered all
One,
most of the things.
yeah, I know you're not really involved with strategy, but we talked about the seaweed or the photoplankton can
Yeah.
absorb carbon.
Mm-mm.
Do you think planting more seaweed
Mm.
would help improve the
Yes,
ocean and
yes,
capture
yes,
carbon?
I think so. And now the government also and なんだろう promoting that uh, things. We call that blue carbon. The blue carbon means carbon absorbed by the ocean. The seaweeds or phytoplankton is the main player for the absorbing carbon. So, um,
Yeah, I would love
mm,
to. I would love to see more seaweed.
mm,
I've been trying more recipes with seaweed. More, I make vegan
mm,
burgers
mm,
and I'm trying to make kelp
mm, mm,
burgers
mm,
with kombu.
mm.
I think we tried them at the women's event.
Mm.
Did you try one I made with
Oh,
kelp and beans together?
ah, I I
I'll
think
bring it to you next time. I'll
okay.
bring it to you next time, yeah.
Thank you.
But that is maybe one solution,
Mm,
instead of the fish
mm,
farms, because I heard the fish farm is actually
mm,
creating a lot of pollution
mm,
for the
mm,
water because of the
mm,
feed that is given to
mm,
the fish
mm,
and the waste
mm.
of too many fish in one
Yes.
area. Have you done any research around fish farms?
Fish farms. I have never did my research around the fish farm. Mm. But
Yeah,
the yeah, it's related to our aquaculture fish farm for the oyster. And
yeah.
the oyster industry is very important in Hiroshima. And,
Very important, yeah.
but
And
now,
I heard oysters are really good for cleaning the
yes,
water.
they filtrate the ocean every time. But
Yeah,
uh, the the issue related to the oyster farming is plastic. They use we use ikada boat made by bamboo, but they need a spacer for the hanging oyster, and for the space that they use plastic, and that oyster pipe is the most how can I say that in the plastic waste in the Seto Inland Sea, the main waste is that oyster pipes.
Yes.
Mm.
We do monthly beach cleanups,
Mm.
and we find thousands
Oh,
of the
pipe.
oyster
Mm.
pipes every
Mm.
time. And I know friends in
Mm.
Hawaii who's cleaning up the beach in Hawaii, and they also find
Oh,
Hiroshima oyster pipes.
really?
Yeah. So this is a Hiroshima
Mm.
problem, but it
Mm.
is a
Mm.
worldwide ocean
Yeah.
problem. And I think I really hope
Mm.
we can go back
Mm.
to bamboo.
Mm.
I heard the bamboo pipe
Mm.
used to use the bamboo
Mm.
spacer
Mm.
in the olden
Yes,
days.
yes.
And actually, that is better for the oysters.
Mm.
It repels
Mm.
the
So,
norovirus,
mm.
one of the oyster farmers
Mm.
told us.
Mm.
So I really want to encourage going back
Mm.
to the
Mm.
bamboo, right?
But they say that the the problem is long lasting or not. But plastic is more long lasting, so they use
Too long lasting is the
too long.
problem, right?
And,
Lasts
mm.
forever. We can't get rid of it, right?
And
Once it's
I
made.
had that very good idea about that. So there is a famous calligraphy brush town in Hiroshima, Kumano. So sometimes they waste. There are so many waste for the thin bamboo for the how can I say この軸
For the brush?
yes,
Yeah.
and and there is some project collaborating the brush company and oyster farming, and they use that bamboo small same bamboo for the instead of that plastic pipe. Mm.
Yeah, that would be
Mm.
wonderful. Also, I talked with Jen Hullams, who is working in tourism in
Mm.
Tohoku, and for their oyster
Mm.
farms, especially for sustainable tourism
Mm.
event,
Mm.
and they invite international visitors, they have an oyster farm with zero plastic,
Oh.
and it has a big appeal
Mm.
for the international visitor.
Mm.
So I think if we can connect it to more sustainable
Mm.
practices and tourism, maybe that helps to create change as well. Yeah. Pamela has a good question. Do you find invasive plants that are
Ah.
taking over native ones in the ocean? Good question.
Okay. In the Seto Inland Sea, it's not plant, but I saw that shellfish called, I don't know the English name, that name of the Japanese name is Hototo Gisugai. It's a very small, beautiful uh, shellfish, and and but they make mud ball around their body, and make a uh, mat
Mussels.
at the
Yeah,
ocean floor, and they increase very rapidly. So sometimes they kill the fish
native.
or other uh, creature living in the on the seafloor. Mm.
Wow. That's really interesting for the invasive
Mm.
species. I never thought about that for the ocean,
Mm.
but it must happen
Mm.
because all of our oceans are connected,
Mm.
right?
Mm. Mm.
There is no border,
Mm.
right? Everything moves
Mm.
around. So that's one of the reasons we have the plastic problem
Mm.
is the plastic goes everywhere.
Mm.
Even if it comes from one area, it goes everywhere in the ocean
Mm.
and actually circles around certain areas, collecting more and more, right?
Mm. Yes.
Yeah, Pamela said maybe mussels. Is it called mussels?
Muscle. I found this. What can I say? ここかな。
She's a
チャット。
researcher. She's finding it right now.
I sent this chat.
Okay,
Oh,
let me share the
うん。
link on Wikipedia. Okay. Kyle says, thank you, Yoko-san, for sharing your knowledge.
the
JJ has done another great job. Oh, thank you, Kyle. Here's the link to the Wikipedia page. Yeah, we're almost done. Just 5 more minutes. Yoko, what kind of research are you doing now and going into in the future?
uh,
Are you focusing on the Seto Inland Sea?
yeah, I also working on the open ocean and yeah, the my main field is North Western North Pacific. That is in the world ocean, that's parts that Western North Pacific is very important as a carbon absorber. So not all the ocean absorbing the carbon. Sometimes some ocean area they emit the CO2, but the North, no, Western North Pacific is a very important area as a carbon absorber. So we are the Japanese, especially Japanese researcher, oceanographer, try to uh, research more and more about that area. So I also uh, yeah, will continue on about the research on the North Pacific area. But I
Yeah.
also want to continue the research on the Seto Inland Sea because yeah, I'm living in the Seto Inland Sea. I love fish, so uh,
It's on your doorstep. It's on your
mm,
doorstep, right
mm,
outside. I think at the event you mentioned about how climate change
mm,
is affecting the oceans, of course.
yes.
Are you noticing what kind of differences are you noticing
Mm.
which connects to climate change?
Uh,
Can you we have a few
uh-huh.
minutes, sorry.
Yeah, the ocean is very important. Yeah, in general, they absorb the carbon. If there are no ocean, the atmospheric CO2 concentration is more higher than the previous than present level. So, but the ocean has a capacity to absorb the carbon. But if the ocean absorb more and more carbon, then the ocean will be acidic. Yeah, we call that ocean acidification, and this is not very good for the ecosystem or many kinds of industry related to the ocean. So, so we have to keep, watch the ocean, not only the atmosphere and land, and yeah, to keep the sustainable ocean will make more yeah, sustainable Earth, I think. Mm.
Yeah, because the ocean covers most of the earth.
Yes, 70
So
percent of the surface.
more, much more than
Mm,
land, right? So we spend a lot of money and effort to take care of the land
mm,
and to plant trees,
mm,
but actually it makes more
mm.
sense to take care of the ocean,
Yes.
right?
Mm.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much,
Thank
Yoko, for
you.
joining.
Thank you for organize this event.
And thank you so much for hosting the women's
Yeah.
event. And I hope we can do
Mm.
already. We have had many requests to use your wonderful Mitarai base again.
Okay. Okay, I'm
So
waiting.
maybe in the future we can use
Mm.
again. That was
Oh,
wonderful.
another question. So
Last question from Pamela.
we have some.
We have issues with storms taking over the beaches in southern
Oh,
Connecticut. So we've been planting native beach grass to
mm,
restore sand dunes. I've heard that about mangroves as
oh,
well,
mangrove.
that
Mm,
mangroves can help protect
mm-mm.
the beach and shore
Oh,
areas.
mm. And sometimes in the Japan seaside, it's opposite side of Seto Inland Sea. They plant pine trees for prevent the sand or strong wind. Mm.
Yeah. It's we need to there's a lot of solutions from the past, right?
Yeah.
Like the swamp
Mm,
area,
mm,
the fish
mm.
ponds. that the Hawaiians used to
mm,
use to have the brackish water
mm,
from the sea, from the
mm,
mountain, also helps
mm,
preserve the
mm.
coast. The mangrove in development, we have been destroying the
Mm.
mangroves. We need to protect
Yes.
them, right? So we're learning a lot of
Mm,
things that
mm,
we used to
past.
have
Mm, mm,
that we need to bring back,
mm.
right?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Yoko.
Thank
It was
you.
wonderful to talk to you.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
everyone, for joining.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
very happy.
Uh,
We got very yeah, many questions from the audience.
Yeah, it's a very important topic. Maybe you can join us again later in the year after your next research
Oh
project,
yes,
and you
yes.
can give us some
After the
updates.
next cruise.
Wonderful. Yeah, good luck. Good luck with all your research.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
everybody. Thank you, Yoko.
Bye.